first story is coming to us from Cointelegraph. Excuse me. First story of the day is coming to us from Cointelegraph. Title of the article, Why the Fed Needs to Start Issuing Digital Dollars. Holographic dollars, it looks like. Ooh-wee-oo. Now, in 2019, one of the leading trends that we talked about was the rise and eventual emergence of centralized central bank digital assets, or central bank digital currencies, whatever you want to call them, CBDCs, as they're typically called, CBDAs, depending on what nick of crypto Twitter you're in. Now, we've reported on the reality of central banks around the world exploring the possibility of utilizing their own central bank digital currency. From the false reports that we talked about of the Tunisian e-dinar, to Sweden's move toward a cashless society via their e-krona project, to nations like Canada revealing their central banks have already conducted significant studies into the matter, to, of course, China, whose central bank appears and is poised to launch the world's first market-ready CBDC, being dubbed the DCEP, the Digital Currency Electronic Payment System, the DCEP, the deception. It's becoming obvious that central banks around the world are starting to take digital currencies seriously. Side note, do yourself a favor, guys, and go watch the Vice on HBO segment. It's on YouTube. It's about 15 minutes long, and it talks about the largest Ethereum miner in Norway, and it talks about Vitalik Buterin, and it's overall just a really interesting take. If you look at how interested so many countries are for innovating in blockchain, innovating in cryptocurrency, and you kind of look, especially as an American, if you just listen to the news and you just kind of read the news that we get, even in crypto land, it's just overwhelmingly negative. And again, the masses are almost always wrong. Everything that they generally tell you is wrong. That's why you guys need to break your mind out of the mold, out of the cage, and actually look at what's going on, notice global patterns, try to predict the future, and invest. Invest early and invest often. What do you got to lose? You know, the overall lack of exposure to cryptocurrency, I think, is ludicrous. I mean, can you imagine being in the year 2020 and not holding some Bitcoin? It balks my mind. Now, with central bank officials and government bureaucrats being relatively cold, at least in America, to the innovative idea of digital assets, outlooks seem to be changing very, very quickly, especially globally, as mass adoption of the technology appears to be becoming an inevitability given enough time. In a recent statement, the chairman of the United States Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, commented that the Fed is actively exploring the possibility of issuing a CBDC. Now, while he did fall short of outright advocating for the creation of one, stating that the Fed has, quote, not identified potential material benefits of general purpose CBDC to the implementation of monetary policy relative to our existing tools. But despite this, there are several good reasons why individuals in the Federal Reserve, including Mr. Powell, ought to change their tune and begin laying the groundwork for a digital USD as soon as possible. For one thing, while Powell and other officials are maintaining that the demand for cash in the United States remains robust, there are a lot of signs suggesting that the United States is well on its way towards becoming a cashless society as well. The FDIC has reported that cash represented just 30% of all payments in 2017. And while 70% of U.S. adults claim that they use cash for everyday transactions, a MasterCard study from a few years ago showed that over 80% of U.S. consumer spending was already cashless. In countries such as Sweden, consumer use of cash is estimated to be below 13% of all payments. That's why development of their e-krona is being expedited in a country where payments are already conducted using mostly electronic means. And when it comes to a cashless society that we might see in the future, the primary concern, in our opinion, relates to human liberty and freedom. And it raises questions as to how do we protect ourselves and how do nation states protect their citizens. How do they protect their access to the financial system, to the banking system? Now, the individual's trust in the traditional banking system has largely depended on, in the past and currently now, on the fungibility of their deposits that you make to your bank, for example. These deposits, which are recorded on digital spreadsheets and databases by centralized authorities, are still able to be turned into public money in the last resort case, known in our society as cash. So there is always, for the individual, the right to take your funds out of the digital centralized spreadsheet that is depositing it into a bank and convert that into something hard. That method of last resort is known as cash, right? And you can always turn your money into cash. What is once digital just exists in the deposit as an entry in the ledger of your bank. You can, through act of your withdrawal, turn that into cash. But in an entirely digital monetary system that does not have a cash equivalent, individuals could see their financial activity surveilled or censored to an absolute degree without that recourse of converting into physical cash. And this just raises the threat level of totalitarianism from blue to warning. So, as societies begin to eliminate cash around the world, citizens, to protect their freedom and liberty, are going to need to be guaranteed access to a form of public money of last resort. So, if no official form of public money is made available to the citizenry on behalf of the nation states, other instruments are going to find informal use as cash equivalents, which could have a negative impact on matters of pricing and commerce. We've seen this throughout history. Now, the main worry of central bankers is that digital or cryptocurrencies threaten their franchise or monopoly on the issuance of money creation. They want to be the only ones in control of the printing press. Now, the problem gets even bigger and has potential implications in the geopolitical area when certain countries decide to go cashless and issue their own digital currencies and then internationalize their payment systems to penetrate other governments' currencies, or other countries' economies, with their new currency and settlement network. So, for example, America has every right to feel threatened, to feel that their sovereign monetary system is being threatened when China talks about, or when Libra talks about, creating a payment network that will be international in scope, and the issuance of money in that payment network is not controlled by America. It's controlled by whoever's creating it. The Libra Association in the case of Libra, the Chinese government in the case of the DCEP. Now, this process is currently being referred to as digital dollarization, or, given the present course, digital wanification. A recent article published by The Observer titled, quote, "How Digital Currency Could Be China's Ultimate Soft Power Tool," describes this process as, quote, "China could force other countries to similarly go digital. China could mandate payments from nations with Chinese power plants or other infrastructure improvements built under the, quote, Belt and Road Initiative. They could require that payments to the Chinese government be made only in the Chinese digital currency. Enormous companies doing business in China could be similarly forced to adopt." This is very similar to obviously the Petro scam and the SWIFT system, which requires international settlements to be made in the United States dollar, which benefits the American economy. China could do the exact same thing and say, if you want to settle up with us, you need to pay us in the DCEP, which means you need to buy the DCEP, which means you're probably going to end up using the DCEP. That's how they can spread adoption, and that way they can geopolitically threaten the sovereign currency of another nation. So what is clear, though, from all of this is that central banks across the world need to accept the coming cryptocurrency revolution. It's already here at their gates. And they need to consider the effects of this technology on the global financial and monetary system. So do we. We need to be actively involved in this. And this needs to be balanced against the interests of individual citizens, right? I think that obviously the idea that we're just going to ball and chain replace the traditional financial system overnight, I don't think that's going to happen. And I think that would probably lead to a little bit more unstructured anarchy than we might like. That's just my personal opinion. I'm all for it, but I want to get there slowly so that humans can adapt. Humans are kind of slow to adapt to new social structures and paradigms. And when human beings are thrust quickly into unfamiliar situations, spooky things can happen that often have unintended consequences. And I'm not down for that. So we definitely need to be thinking about this. This needs to be at the forefront of our thoughts, at the forefront of our conversations. Obviously, the first step is to allow the government to co-opt cryptocurrency. Let it corrupt them, decentralize the power to a better degree than it currently is, and then begin pushing forward with fully decentralized currency. This thing is going to happen in steps. This revolution happens in waves. First, we infiltrate. First, we infest. Then we infiltrate. Then we spread. Then we take over. That's how it happens, people. Now, we need to make sure that whatever system we construct aligns, for the first time potentially in history, the actual interests of the individual citizen and the efficient running of global economies. Okay, this all needs to work well together. And we can do it. It's just going to take some brain power. Now, considering the interest of the greater nation on a whole, however, the United States may be better served by adopting its own digital currency before giving up any more ground in what is turning into the new technological arms race among nations, the arms race for the dominant digital currency. So, you guys are listening, American regulators, senators, politicians, lawmakers. Pull your head out of your rear ends and let's get this digital dollar going, at the very least. Or you're going to be left behind. So definitely let me know what you guys think about this. Is the United States coming around? Is the United States not coming around? Does it kind of see the writing on the walls, or are they in denial? Very similar to a bull that is looking at his underwater long position right now, in abject denial of reality. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on this topic, and I will randomly pick a winner tomorrow for our everyday crypto comment giveaway. See you guys down there.